sometimes I'm finding that the issue isn't necessarily that there's not young people within the church, it's that young people don't know where they fit within the church. And that really showed me like what the opportunities for how do I say this? Like outside of the congregation, like opportunities that the church can offer you, and like ways to be more involved, not just with the people that you've always known, and like what a wider community there even is out there. And it just was like very eye-opening. But like really it was about the trip showing me like what the church could allow me to offer to the wider community.
Today, we're talking with my very good friend, Jenna. Jenna is a 2-year church council chairperson by the time she was 27. She talks in this video today about going on a CLWR, a Canada Lutheran World Relief global encounter, where she went to Ethiopia to learn about the work that the Lutheran World Federation and Canada Lutheran World Relief are doing as part of the Global Lutheran community. And we talk about the importance of understanding ourselves as Lutherans, not just here in Canada in our own congregations, but also as part of a global communion of young Lutherans in the world. And we talk about how those kinds of experiences feed back into involving us in our home church lives. I also want to say that there's currently a lot happening in Ethiopia. I've included several links in the description box to the Lutheran World Federation website and also to the Canada Lutheran World Relief website. On those websites, you can read a little bit more about what's happening in Ethiopia right now. Take it away, Jenna.
My name's Jenna Scheffelmeyer, and I am 27 years old. I go to St. James Lutheran St. Jacobs. I've been going there my whole life. My grandma's been going there her whole life, so a lot of roots in that congregation. And up until recently, I was the chair, but now vice chair, and actually appreciative of being able to take a step back. So yes, that's my involvement in the church.
Hi, my name is Christina. I'm 23. I go to Mount Zion Lutheran and also St. James St. Jacobs with Jenna. And today I'm here with Jenna, and she's here to tell us a little bit about her life. It's unusual for a young person to be council chair. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be council chair, what that looks like, what that means to you?
Yeah, so actually what happened was a member of our congregation, Walter Hackburn, had made like a sizable donation to a project to CLWR, and so they had offered to pay for a member of our congregation to attend that global encounter, because that specific project that he donated to was part of the encounter. And it had originally actually been offered to just a single male in the congregation, but he had declined. And so then they wanted my sister and I to go, but obviously only one ticket was offered. So we got together, we did fundraising, that's how our Advent Bazaar started, and then we were able to go. And then shortly after that, I was asked to join church council. And I guess I was just feeling grateful to the church at the time, but also like more connected, and like I understood more about what was going on with the congregation, and interested in knowing more than I did. So I agreed to join. I get to that first meeting, and the first person that the elections are for is for chair, and nobody volunteers. Wow. And nobody seemed willing to, and we sat there for about 5 minutes and nobody was willing to do it. Everybody just had a reason that they couldn't. And I am the type of person that will step in if nobody else will do something, so I did. And I said, I'll do my best if you help me out, and I will try my best. And then, yeah, that's how that happened. And then the second year, I had asked if somebody else would be willing to, because that was after my dad's accident and I just needed time, and so that was good. And then the third year I was chair again, because I felt obviously that I knew what was expected, and now this most recent round of elections I'm now vice chair again, just because with work and like things like that I just didn't think I could prioritize church council and the congregation the way that the chair should be, and like the way that they deserve to be prioritized. So So I guess some people feel replaced when they're like not re-elected as chair, but I felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders, so it was good. Yes. So for me, it was really enjoyable.
Good. That's great.
I really liked it. I felt like it did give me an opportunity to like connect with outside of just the congregation, with the like Lutheran community as a whole, but also to really understand like my congregation and that a lot better.
So you grew up in St. James,
Yes.
right?
And then you went to a CLWR experience?
They call it a global encounter, or like they did at the time.
Where did you go for your global encounter?
So we went to Ethiopia. So we landed in Addis Ababa, and we did spend quite a bit of time there. So initially we took a bus. It was a few hours away, but that was like the first area we went. And then we were able to participate in the Epiphany festival in Addis.
What's that?
So Epiphany for the Lutherans there is like a really big deal, and it's really good because there's a lot of pastors on the trip, so they can explain things to you. But I guess essentially the way it works here is like so Epiphany, I believe, if I'm saying this correctly, it's about like baptism.
Yeah.
So with us, like we get baptized once, and then that's it. And so we don't really celebrate Epiphany in the way that they do. In Addis, because they are rebaptized every year.
Cool.
So they had like great big fire hoses set up along the outside, and there was like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people outside. We kind of get bussed in, and then there's a great big metal fence and a huge circle, and you've got a big stage on the one side, and they've got like the bishop up there like chanting, and they've got all kinds of groups who are like singing and dancing and playing instruments, and you're all in there for that. And then, like I said, around the outside they've got these great big like stands set up with people with fire hoses essentially spraying into the crowd, and they'll spray you, and it's like this baptism, and it's just this big festival like celebration. And it was like it was really, really like fascinating to be a part of, and like to take it all in, and to be there for. Like I was so happy I experienced that. And it was like a huge religious festival, and I'm like, nobody celebrates like this here. Like nobody, like there's no passion here. And even Kira was saying when she was in Belize, like she was there for Easter, and they do like these beautiful like sawdust like carpets and like these huge parades, and it's like it's the celebration of like your religion and like your beliefs. And like I don't find that that's something that happens here, where it's like a joyful celebration.
Yeah. And you have to like go to church on Easter Sunday, sing a hymn, open some chocolate, go back to
like,
lunch with your family.
You almost have like it's like the people, I don't know if people almost like want the like fire and the brimstone, and they want like do this to be a good person, and like I just maybe that's where westernized Christianity seems to be going, is like through fear instead of like joy and happiness. But I just like it was interesting, because it was like I've never experienced such a joy and like such a happiness in like relation to religion like here.
Yeah.
So it was totally new, and it was like so like fascinating to me.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I'm jealous. Really?
Like, and obviously it was this interesting feeling of like privilege, because we were allowed inside the gate. So we were right inside the celebration, where like most of the people who are actually local, who this is like their tradition, who like you know what I mean? Like I was learning about it, but these people like are passionate about it, and they're sort of on the outsides.
Yeah.
It was like I felt so lucky to be there and to be involved, but then I also felt like it didn't necessarily feel right to be there at the same time. It was like this interesting feeling. So it's like I'm so grateful for the experience, and I would have rather had it than not had it. But I just don't want to like feel special in a situation where I don't necessarily deserve to feel special.
Sure.
If that makes sense. Yeah, to be somewhere where somebody would
access.
probably love to be, and I'm just grateful to be, it just didn't feel yeah, like this is like Epiphany is like so important to them, and I was only just really learning about it in that scenario because I was in it, and so it was like it just felt like this is something that they like wait for every year, and like there was people out there with water bottles like catching the water so it was interesting. Kira thought that they were catching the water to drink. So Kira, we had water bottles, and Kira had half a bottle of water, and she gave it to somebody in the crowd because she thought they wanted the water. They turned it and they dumped it right out because they wanted the water out of the fire hose to take home to baptize people who weren't able to make it. So whether they're too young or too old or too ill, it was about the water for the baptism, not for drinking. So she still did a good thing because that person now had a bottle to take water home, and they were very happy. But it was just like interesting because like we didn't understand. It's so much learning, like so much we didn't understand that we're like, oh my gosh, like I would have never realized. Yeah, so like I said, it was something where I didn't even know that was like the charity that we gave to. I didn't understand a lot about it, but I took some time and I looked into it, and I was like, the point of the trip is I wouldn't have called it like a mission trip. It's more so like you go and like you see what you're donating to, like you see the work that they're doing with your funding, and then you get to bring that information back to your congregation so that it's not, like to me it just felt like some charities you give money to them and you're like that's the end of it. Like you don't really know where your money goes, you don't really know what they do with it. And I like with CLWR it really made me feel like they wanted, like they were being accountable to like the people who donate to them, and like they were making sure that everybody who wanted the opportunity to know what they were doing like had that opportunity to learn what they were doing. And like the work that they were doing was phenomenal. Like we went over there and they were doing work with local farmers in one area, like teaching them how to artificially inseminate cows, and like teaching them how to make more than just like cheese out of milk, like maybe sour cream or yogurt, so that there's like more products on the market. And there was like a separate area where we went where they were like teaching them how, like irrigation and like how to like farm and like build, like grow gardens. And it's just all like the goal ultimately is to be able to leave that area and start putting money somewhere else, and for them to be self-sufficient after. And so like that's what I really, really found that I liked about it, is they're trying to teach these skills that they can have forever, and that are going to help them, and that they can teach to like younger generations, and so that they don't need this help and they don't need this income because they can do it themselves. And like that's the purpose, and that's what I really, really liked, is that they're not trying to build a system that like makes people dependent on them, but actually makes them independent of them. So like, and I think that's just a sign of like a charity that's genuinely doing like the right things.
Yeah, I think also good caretaking of your neighbor is the teach a man to fish, right? Give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish.
Exactly.
Right? Help them to be able to do it without you, and if they don't need you, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, you've done good work, and now you can go help other people who do need you. Yeah. Because there's always going to be people that need help, so you know they're never going to be out of something to do. Hopefully, eventually, but not in the near future, right? So, like I said, great opportunity, great learning experience, like, and I loved it. But it was like one of the two more, I would say, I don't even know if it was necessarily touristy, but one of the two things that weren't directly related to the projects that were being done by CLWR that we did. And the other one was we went to the cave churches in Lalabella, and that is obviously both are very related to like Lutheranism and like religion. So they were definitely like part of the trip. So yeah, and like that was another thing that I actually really appreciated about CLWR, is it was not like volunteerism. Like you weren't going and like building a school for a week and then vacationing for a week, but then who knows like where are the supplies for the school, where are the teachers, like how are you going to keep the children safe? Like there's no, like it's just a building, and like you can go home and feel like you did a good thing, but like who knows who's going to end up using that school, but it might not be children, like so I just like I feel very strongly that when you're going to support like a charity that like you actually know what that charity does and like what they stand for, and that it's not volunteerism, and it's not, you're not donating money to go into the pockets of the people who work there. Like, it just, those are things that irritate me, and I feel like a lot of people don't take the time to really educate themselves and understand those things. And it gave me an opportunity to really learn about CLWR and know that that's not what they do.
How is CLWR different than like a volunteerism trip?
So we were there for 2 weeks, and like I said, the entire 2 weeks, other than 2 events, which were both about half-day events, like we still did do things within learning about CLWR and the projects and things like that, but they were both very religiously related. So it wasn't as though, you know, you were building a school and then you were going on a safari, which are like 2 things that kind of like don't really correlate to each other. Everything that we did do like correlated, and every day like you're going in there to like the CLWR offices and like you're learning. And so some of the initiatives that they were doing was if they're going to be teaching these things, like a certain percentage of the people that are learning have to be women, and a certain because like they just like, and it was like a certain percentage of people with like all different kinds of percentages, but there had to be women involved. There had to be like different things that they were meeting, because obviously over there the women aren't considered people who would, you know, own cows and milk the cows and create, you know, cheese or whatever from the milk. Like, that wouldn't necessarily be what they do, but so they just want them to have that opportunity. And a lot, like, you know, you do get like people who are in scenarios where they are like single mothers or they're alone, and like there's no reason for them not to. So I really did like that was things that were incorporated, and you went in there and you learned like this is what the community was like before we got there. Like, this was, it was like a couple years into it, this is what it's like now. And like you get, like, they actually show you the growth and show you the improvement. It was like you'd be in there for a couple hours, and like it would be the people. And so CLWR in Ethiopia, everybody who is working in those offices are like they are Ethiopian.
Yeah.
And
cool.
So
they didn't ship in Canadians to like run the office.
I think you can do internships there, but everybody who's in charge there is from there.
Employ the people.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. So, and that's another one that like I really liked, is that these are people who live in these communities who are working to help make these communities better, so they understand the needs and they can communicate with the people. And like, yeah, it's just like everything. I just felt like they were doing everything right.
I forget that CLWR is like part of the Lutheran Church. I was having a conversation with somebody, maybe one of my parents or somebody, hey, but I was like, I just don't understand. We're so worried about our own congregations and about our own communities, as we should be. I'm not saying not to be, but like the world is really big. Like, what do we do in the world? And whoever this was, like, well, Christina, there's like Canadian Lutheran World Relief, there's the Lutheran World Federation. There are Lutheran organizations who are going and living out that like take care of others, work for justice in the world kind of work. There are like ways to be Lutheran and make large global impact and to like make change. My parents were saying the other day that for years we would like, at Christmas time, we would gift goats to one another, and that those goats were part of the CLWR initiatives to go send goats to people who then could do some of the programs that it sounds like you're talking about. Through those goats that we would gift every Christmas, that was one way that we were contributing through a Lutheran organization to goodness and justice in the world. So we forget. It's so easy to think about our communities and like our Lutheran community as like my congregation, maybe my community, maybe my ministry area team, maybe my synod or like country. And it's so hard to remember that these like organizations are part of the Lutheran Church and also doing that global work.
Yes, and then the groups in they're not considered CLWR or Canadian Lutheran World Relief. It's Lutheran World Federation. And so it was like LWF Ethiopia, and it's like we're just in partnership with them. So like I said, if you're from CLWR, you could go do an internship there and work with them, but you'd be doing it with LWF. So it's a partnership, but they're not the same. which is once again, like they're working with these charities, but they're working with charities that are run locally. So they're not coming in and saying, this is the way we do things. They're really going in and saying, how should we do things? Like they're listening and they're trying to make educated decisions. And yeah, like I said, I just think that they're doing a great job.
Would recommend.
Yes, 100%.
You were talking about cave churches? Or
So
church
Lalabella they're like the rock churches or something. So it was like from what I remember or like understand, it was like just flat like rock, and like people like from the top to the bottom carved down to make these churches. These churches were just like, they're massive, and you go inside and they're like so ornate. And like I said, it was unfortunate that you don't get to see everything that it looked like, because a lot of it was.
So is it like stone faces, or like it's decorated inside?
More on the walls, like paintings and decorations, statues, all that kind of stuff. And you walk through and you see it all, and it is like, it's traditional. Like there was a couple churches that we went to, and they do want you to wear like the headscarves and to, you know, like have all your body parts covered and everything. So, which is totally fine. So we did all that, and it was super interesting. It was super fascinating. Like you learn a whole lot about like Christianity and the culture there, and like because it's like you said, like there's Lutheran here, but there's Lutherans all over the world, and the way that they celebrate being a Lutheran is different than the way that we celebrate being a Lutheran. So it's like, it's just interesting to see like what being a Lutheran is to like somebody else in another part of the world.
Because when I think about Lutheranism, I think about like old German churches, and then like I think about like old German churches and like Reformation, and then like traveling across the ocean and still like setting up my church, which works this way, and we sing these hymns, and it goes da 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 da. But like everything you're describing sounds inventive and artistic and full of joy and love and passion and genuine like love and celebration of like Christ and all the things, as opposed to like, I will follow my catechism.
So good. And then we got back to Addis, and then we did a museum there, like their natural history museum, so you learn all about like Lucy. I think they have her skeleton in that museum. So Lucy was the first humanoid ever like discovered, like the oldest skeleton of a human ever discovered, but I think they found an older one since then, and she was discovered in Ethiopia. So they say Ethiopia is the birthplace of humanity. So you learn all about that, and you learn a lot about their history and about their culture, and like that was super interesting. Like the only thing we really did that I could say would make a lasting impact is we all got to plant like trees on a hill in Lalabella, and it was one tree each, but like that obviously, like I learned that a lot of the problem with why they have all these droughts is that like they used to have like really good fertile soil, but they cut all their trees down for the lumber industry, and then without the trees, like their soil like was no longer
washes away.
Yeah, exactly. So like they had all this problem because they cut down all their trees. So it's like growing more trees. Like obviously it's not going to solve the problem as quickly as it created it, but it's part of a solution.
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting. But like basically what I tell them is I say like I'm a Lutheran, and like the charity that represents like my churches is Canadian Lutheran World Relief. So when we donate to a charity, it's always that charity. And then they take this money and they take it throughout the world to areas that need extra help, and they come up with essentially like projects or whatever they can think of to help people with whatever issue they're dealing with. So Ethiopia, a lot of that's food insecurity. So they were really like tackling like a lot of irrigation, and like I said, like value added, like teaching the farmers how to make more out of what they already have to like add extra in. But like that's not always what they do. Like they'll solve whatever problem there is to solve. So I just say, and then like Lutheran World Federation, like there's LWF Ethiopia, there's LWF Kenya, like they're because it's not Canada, it's the world, so it's a partnership.
What do you take back from that trip?
So like I said, now I just have so much more of an understanding of what CLWR does. I really try to make sure that my congregation is like actively involved as much as possible. So I've been doing an Advent bazaar every year through my church that's raising money to send a member of the congregation on the Global Encounter, just because I believed that like our congregation should be informed and should be aware of like what we're spending our money on, but also because I just thought like the experience like really like educated me and showed me so many things that could do that for somebody else and maybe like reinvigorate them or invigorate them in the first place to get more involved. And for me it really showed me like what the opportunities for how do I say this, like outside of the congregation, like opportunities that the church can offer you, and like ways to be more involved, not just with the people that you've always known, and like what a wider community there even is out there. And it just was like very eye-opening for me. So I still like have a good relationship with Doug Rebley, who I met on the trip. We do lunches every now and then when we have the time. And it like for a little bit I was keeping up with the two other girls who were on the trip. I believe Emily is now on the board of CLWR, so obviously for her that trip also got her way more involved. So I just think it's like the Global Encounter itself is actually such a good experience for younger people to go on, because a lot like I didn't have any idea like that the church was doing any of these things before I went, because it's not that advertised. And like it really does show you like what you can do and like what a difference that you can make within your church. You just have to put the energy and the effort in, which is what I'm now trying to do.
What are you working to put your energy into after this?
So, well, like I joined council, I've continued working on the Advent Bazaar, I'm on the refugee ministry through the church. So I've met a couple of the different groups of refugees at our church in partnership with the St. Jacob's Mennonite Church and one of the other churches, like financially gone in on, and I've met some of them and I've done some work with that, and I do feel like I've made more of an effort to be more of like a Lutheran outside of St. James and like a Lutheran in the wider community.
Global Lutheran.
Global Lutheran. There you go.
Dude, your story's so sick.
It was a good one. It was a really good one.
Like, I don't even know what to ask you anymore.
Oh,
I'm
no.
just a little bit in awe and jealousy.
No.
Very jealousy.
Oh man. Well, if they do another Global Encounter, you should really
Absolutely.
think about going, because it's just like I can't imagine a better like everybody always says like what's your favorite trip, and I always say Ethiopia. Like even though I spent like a month in Europe, like I spent 2 weeks in Australia, like and like they're all amazing trips, but like I don't think that they fundamentally like changed how I looked at things in the way that like Ethiopia did.
How did it change how you look at them?
Like it just like you can watch it on the news and you can talk about like with people like the things that are going on, but it's so much different to like see it and to meet people who are going through it and to talk to people who have like gone through things that you can't even imagine happening where you're from. And like I said, it's one thing to see it on TV and it's one thing to hear about it, but it's totally different to experience it. And it's like you don't forget an experience like that. It's like you might come back a little bit more motivated and like eventually sort of go back into your old habits in a way where maybe you look a little bit more wasteful with water than you need to be, or you don't recycle as well as you could. But in terms of like how you like I said, in terms of like what I'm actually like putting into like CLWR now, like the effort that I'm putting into like when I always talk about it with people and I'm like I'm so like passionate about it, I really am. I'm like everybody should just be part of CLWR.
Yeah.
So it's like that, like I'm not gonna forget, and like that I'm not going to like ease up on, I guess.
If they're looking for marketing people, are you in?
Always, but.
Cool. You said that you try to motivate people. You said that you try to motivate people to like get involved or to participate or anything. What is other than just getting more involved or donating money or any of that, is there a specific call to action that you have for people, or you say like look into outside of your church, or like focus less on within your own walls, or like?
I think for my congregation it's a little bit more difficult. They're like very set in their ways, but like for example, there's a member of the congregation, he's younger, his name is Bryce.
We love Bryce.
Yes, we love Bryce, and he now works for me at Sobeys actually. So like, just while we're there, sometimes we're chatting, and I'll tell him about, I'll tell him about the Ethiopia trip, or I'll tell him about CLWR, or I'll tell him about things that our church is doing specifically, and he's like, I never knew this, like I didn't, like, sometimes I'm finding that the issue isn't necessarily that there's not young people within the church, it's that young people don't know where they fit within the church, and there are a lot of like specifically youth focused congregations or churches out there, and then they'll go join that because they know their place there. And like with Bryce, like I'll tell him, like we're learning committees doing a guess who's coming to dinner, or they're doing a meditative walk, or and he'll be like, I had no idea these things were going on. And it's just like, maybe people aren't being informed of like the opportunities that are even there for them. And I would say for me, like that's something I really had to decide to take the initiative to learn where the opportunities were, but I wouldn't have if an opportunity hadn't presented itself. So it's like, I'm not saying you need to give people a trip to get them involved in the church. Like that happened to work for me, but like really it was about the trip showing me like what the church could allow me to offer to the wider community.
And for you, you didn't just find the trip and say, I want to go on it. It sounds like somebody like saw you and shoulder tapped you.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't know it was an opportunity, and then the pastor said, listen, we've got this opportunity to send somebody to Ethiopia. But it's like, I didn't just take the trip and then say, thanks, see ya. After going on the trip, it just like really like made me want to be able to give back, because like it was such an amazing experience.
It sounds like they to use a really bad analogy, that they like what's the thing about where you like they sent you to Ethiopia putting like 2 loaves and 5 fish and 2 fish and 5 loaves in your basket, and you came back with that tenfold to give back to people.
I've never heard that before, but that's a good one.
Just kidding. But you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
gave you a small piece and you went out, and it sounds like you bring back from that one experience, you now are coming back to the church with energy and excitement and enthusiasm and interest and an ability to communicate, and like I know that you are able to rally people like nobody's business.
Oh, if all want too bad enough. Yeah, but like I said, it was interesting because we were there and they were saying like, how can we get younger people to come? And it's like, you have to pay for it, because a lot of people don't have $5,000 to spend to go on this trip. So the other 2 younger people, like they also, their trip was paid for through like funding, or maybe it was half paid for, I'm not sure, but it's, if you've got this trip that could really show people like what they can do, and really show people the involvement, like I said, show them the accountability that their charity has to their congregation, like you could probably get them a lot more involved. But like a lot of 20 somethings, they can't afford that, especially if then they're taking 2 weeks off of work that they're probably not getting paid for. And it's like, it's horrible to say like the church should be spending more money on sending younger people on these with these opportunities, but if people don't know what there is out there for them, like they're not going to find out on their own. Like you do have to show them, and you do have to offer the opportunity. And like maybe only like 5 out of the 10 people that you send back are really going to become like actively engaged in their church community. But I can say from the global encounter I went on, like I've become chair and or vice chair. I've continued on the charity, like I've become so much more involved in my church. Like I said, I know Emily is on the board of CLWR now. So it's like that's 2 out of the 4 young people who now have a much more active role within, CLWR or the church as a whole, like because of the opportunity this trip provided. My sister always says that traveling is the only thing you'll spend money on that makes you richer. And I think that was a trip like I left very wealthy.
If you want to learn more about Jenna and her sister Kira and their experience on the Global Encounter and what else they're doing in their lives these days, you can read more about them in their biographies on the 35 Under 35 project. We've so far published about 70 young Canadian Lutherans who are involved in the Lutheran Church, and you can find those on the ELCIC Young Adults, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as on this website, where the Youth and Young Adults Council of the Eastern Synod has very kindly posted all of the biographies. If you'd like to learn more about what's happening in Ethiopia right now, you can check out the links in the description box below. Again, it's from the Lutheran World Federation and the Canada Lutheran World Relief. Lastly, as you heard in the video, this is only part 1, so we will see more of Jenna next week. Next week we talk about what it was like to be under 30 at Synod Convention, and more about what it's just like to be young in the church. Thank you for joining us today. Peace be with you, and we'll see you next week. Bye!